Pearse Doherty, please.
Corlia, Taoiseach, I too want to raise the issue with you in relation to the review published by the HSE yesterday of the 46,000 radiology scans carried out by University Hospital Kerry in Tralee. The report found that 11 patients had their diagnosis of cancer delayed and that 4 of those patients have since passed away. Some of those 11 received the report by taxi, Minister, and I don't think that's an appropriate way or a patient-centred way to deliver a report to any of these victims. Our thoughts are with the families, and particularly at this very difficult time, and for all those affected by the scandal. Whilst I welcome the publication of the report, there are a number of issues outstanding that require clarification, Taoiseach, and I hope you'll be in a position to provide that clarification here this afternoon. Firstly, there are less than 2 pages in the report that deal with recommendations to prevent a similar situation happening in the future. When asked by my colleague, Councillor Tricia Ferris, yesterday what the timescale is for the implementation of those recommendations, hospital management couldn't give her an answer. So unless management accept their failings and accept their responsibilities and put measures in place to address what has happened, then this can and could happen again. And there are concerns, because these concerns in relation to the misdiagnosis or in relation to some of these scans were being raised by hospital staff, were being raised by GPs, and it seemed that the appropriate action wasn't taken until a later stage. So I want to know, what are the HSE and the Minister going to do about that? Will a timeline for the implementation of the report's recommendation be produced, and will it be published? And the matter of most concern is that over a year after the issue first came to light, guidelines in respect of the volume of work that radiologists should be undertaking not only isn't in place, it's not in place, but the process to develop those guidelines doesn't seem to have even started after a year on from this scandal. Can I ask specifically on that point what has been done about that, and will those guidelines be produced without delay? And it's absolutely crucial, Taoiseach, because the workload that this individual had, this consultant in question had, was a key contributing factor to patients receiving a missed or delayed diagnosis, and that needs to be addressed, and addressed urgently. The report acknowledges that 4 people have died as a result of receiving a missed or delayed diagnosis, Taoiseach, but there is a 5th person whose family believes that she passed away as a result of this also. She has been told that she was part of the review in February, but heard nothing after that point. She has unfortunately since then passed away. So will you give assurances that the hospital will engage with her family so that they can get the answers that they are so desperately seeking at this point in time? Finally, Taoiseach, there is a real possibility that people may have to go through the courts. We already know of one application being lodged, having to go through the courts to get justice in what are clearly cases of medical negligence. So can you give assurances that this won't happen, that the hospital and the HSE will engage with the victims and the families and ensure they don't have to go through this rigmarole and this convoluted legal process so that they can get justice? And some of the cases, Corlia, and I conclude in this, people are terminally ill. This is a very time-sensitive issue, and we need to ensure that there is immediate action, something that isn't happening heretofore.
Thank you.
Deputy, this report was only published in the last 48 hours. There are 16 recommendations in the report. My understanding is that those recommendations are already being implemented. Tragically, 4 people have passed away since this report began. I don't know the circumstances in each individual case, so I think we should be careful with what we say about that in relation to apportioning blame and circumstance. But what, of course, I want to say is that any families that still have questions to ask and need answers need to get the full cooperation of the hospital concerned and the HSE. The whole point of this review was that a look-back review was that it was triggered as a result of complaints which led to concerns as to the quality of care that patients were getting in the hospital. And as a result, all of the scans and workload linked to that one consultant doctor were re-examined. And we have learned lessons from that that are that raise very serious questions and need a response. In relation to guidelines around the workload for radiologists, I don't have those guidelines in front of me, but there should be no problem with making them available, I expect. And of course, it is the job of the HSE and hospital management to make sure that they have the teams available that can work in a way that's consistent with medical guidelines. If there is an individual family or an individual that you're raising that has particular concerns, I don't have the details of that family, but if you make them available, I'll certainly ensure that that the Minister's office is aware of that. But just to repeat the message here, we are trying to ensure that the response here is patient-centred, that lessons are learned, that systems are put in place on the back of these mistakes to make sure that they don't happen again. And if families continue to have questions or concerns that they need answers to, well then the hospital and the HSE are there to provide those answers. And people should not have to go to court to get basic questions in relation to patient care and patient safety in the hospital answered.
Minister, the problem is it's not patient-centred, and people are currently going to court, and there is no other avenue available to them in relation to the justice that is there. Let me talk to you about one of the 11, which was identified in the report as the delayed and misdiagnosis resulting in severe negative outcomes to that person's health. Between March and October of 2016, the now 71-year-old, who's a husband, a father, a grandfather, had 3 chest X-rays, 3 of them, Minister. His cancer wasn't picked up in any one of the 3. The radiologist who was reviewed is not the only radiologist that was involved in his case. There was another doctor who reported at least in one of those scans. His symptoms persisted, and at the insistence and persistence of his wife, the GP referred him for another X-ray in early 2017, and he was finally diagnosed. The error hadn't been detected by the review, and despite the delayed diagnosis, he was scheduled for a CT scan for June of that year, months after they identified the misdiagnosis. His wife persisted, and she ensured that it was brought forward to April. They discovered that the missed lung cancer at that stage had spread to such a rate that it was wrapped around the main artery of his heart, Minister. He went through, in her words, horrific treatment, but it was too late. He has only a short time left, I'm informed, and the family firmly believes that if it had been detected in any of the 3 earlier X-rays, the prognosis would not have been terminal. Now, just let me finish on this, because they've asked me to make this point. They've had to fight for appointments in our health service for the care that they need, for treatment. They've had to fight for grant aid so that the basic things like having a downstairs toilet so that this person who was failed by our health service can live out his final days with comfort and access to a downstairs toilet. He has an oxygen 24 hours a day, and his family are devastated. Now, the appeal that they're asking me to make to you, to the Taoiseach and the government is don't force an individual who's been so let down and so failed heretofore to go through a complicated process in terms of legal action. We need to ensure that we wrap them with the supports that are available, that the grant should be there, that they shouldn't have to fight for it, that the appointment shouldn't be there, that we shouldn't have family members demanding that they are fast-tracked. This is not patient-centred, and they should not have to go to court. So I want assurances from you that everything that can be done will be done to provide the best treatment available to these individuals in whatever days they have left, and that a process will be set up that avoids them having to go through the legal route.
First of all, Deputy, to the family that you refer to, they are clearly going through a hugely traumatic time, and I can give you the assurance that the state, through the HSE, through Kerry University Hospital and the Department of Health, of course, needs to do everything we can to ensure that the individual concerned gets the maximum care possible to manage what sounds like a terminally ill case. In relation to legal proceedings, my understanding is that 3 legal proceedings have been issued in relation to cases that were dealt with in the report. The State Claims Agency will be managing those cases. It's always the objective of the state to try to deal in a patient safety, compassionate manner with cases like this to prevent families having to go to court. That's not always possible, but certainly that is what the State Claims Agency will be trying to do.